Hey, everybody, welcome back to Practical Liberty. I'm excited for this podcast, but I want to start it with a question. Do you think you're getting paid what you're worth? Now, most people, when you ask them that question, they're going to say, no, I'm not getting paid anything close to what I'm worth. But there's a paradox there because when we go to negotiate for our salary or our client fees, we almost always undercharge. So today's guest is Rob Tillman. He's an expert in establishing what you're worth and actually getting paid it among his many other talents. So I'm really excited for this conversation. Rob, thanks for joining me today, man.
Thanks, Henry. So happy to be here with you, man. We're going to have some fun today and hope to drop some nuggets for everybody.
Oh, you always do. Yeah, we met a couple weeks ago, and you were the guy that everybody kept looking to. So people would we were doing hot seats, and people would they'd put out their business situation, and then a couple people would answer, and eventually everybody in the room would start turning around and be like, "What's Rob have to say about this?" So I have no doubt you got some wisdom to drop today. But before we get into that, can you kind of give people your background? I know you played college ball. You went into
Well, some big things for me are not about college ball and everything. The big thing for me is about what I did with this crazy thing called a career. So I never should have had the career that I had. My actual real life is better than my dream life was less than my real life. My parents, just normal working class people. And when I turned 15 years old, I told them that I was going to get a full scholarship. I was going to either get a full scholarship, go to the military, or get a job. And they laughed at me until I ended up getting that full scholarship and packed everything I had into my car and put money in my pocket and ran off to school 1 week after graduating high school. From there, it's been this crazy whirlwind of what we're talking about today, which is establishing value. Crazy, crazy, crazy. Worked my way up to being an aerospace executive. Imagine that. Me, from where I'm from and all the things I've gone through to become a super highly paid aerospace executive, building all the things for rockets and planes and missiles and all this kind of stuff. And then I found out that I had a knack for helping other people follow that same path, not of becoming an executive, but finding out how to really get paid what they were worth. And I called that whole process unignorable.
unignorable. I like it. It's one thing that I don't know. Some people there's two different types of people, right? There's the people that want to be ignored. And they feel bad about themselves. They have that imposter syndrome with everything they do. And then there's the opposite type of person who like feels like they never had enough in life. Like they had all this natural talent and they were never able to actually maximize their capacity. So how do you deal with, I guess, both of those two different groups? Let's start
Wow.
with the undervalued, the person that wants to hide.
So the person who wants to hide, a lot of times the reason they want to hide is because of mindset things. It's, what they think about a person who is out in the public or what they think about a person who actually has money. And it comes really when we're young. And I had the same thing. So my parents were always, don't be, those rich people do this and this is what happens and all these things. They put these things in your head that make you think that it's bad to have money. They make you think that you're supposed to be meek and all of those things that really carry on into our adulthood. And we just need to find a way to get rid of them. And that's what I really have to help people get over is don't be ashamed of being successful. Don't be ashamed of who you are. And really, every single one of us was born with the unique talent that the world is looking for us to find a way to show. Even if that talent is stacking M&Ms. There's a person in the Guinness Book of World Records. I have a Guinness Book of World Records over beside me. And literally there's a person that is famous for stacking M&Ms. So it's crazy that what people have to figure out is what's really inside of them and how to bring it out. And, going into your second person, if you want me to go ahead and do that one.
Yeah, go ahead.
That person that feels like they aren't getting everything that they want, a lot of times it's because they're not really structuring who they are. I jokingly used to call myself that boss. I said, I'm that boss, the boss that you have a better education, more experience, and highly likely way better credentials, but I get paid way more than you and you report to me. And the question is, why? And everybody would say, well, yeah, that's not right. And again, that's that person you're talking about. They're like, that's not right. I went to Caltech. That's not right. I went to UCLA, USC. I went to Michigan. I went to Wisconsin. They're talking about all these great schools they went to. They're talking about the MBAs they have. They're talking about PhDs. And they're asking, why do I work for you? And the answer was always simple. It's because you don't know how to articulate your value and you keep on looking for it outside of yourself. They're looking for that next credential. They're looking for that next class. They're looking for that next course. They're looking for that next certificate to try to prove who they are. And the people who really advance, as aren't about all that. They understand that they have an individual gift and their objective is to maximize that gift, not to try to find something else.
Yeah, I like that. So the dichotomy there is kind of the first person that doesn't think they're worth it. They need to find their value, right? They need to find what inside them they can do uniquely that nobody else can do. And once you have that value and you can provide it, I mean, you can really start expanding your life. And then the other type of person, they need to actually, they already feel like they have the value, but they don't know how to provide it in the right way, right? They
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to frame it. They don't know how to deliver it. So they're kind of a different type of person to work with.
They are totally different people, but once you get them on the same page, they all have to go through the same process. It doesn't matter who we are. If we think we're undervalued or we know that we have a value inside of us that we can't bring out, it always goes through the same phases. Jokingly, remember when we were in Knoxville, I said that as a child, your success is based upon what you learn. But as we get older, the success that we get in life is based on what we unlearn.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. So what are some of the things that people have learned that they need to unlearn? What are the most common things you see? So let's give people a little bit of a context of what you've been doing the last couple of years with helping people get those jobs.
Okay, so I've actually been working with executives to get $300,000 plus jobs. So that's what I've been doing. So I take them through different types of processes, which I'll call it the 3 steps of that process, which we're actually about to get into first, which is to unlearn. There's so many things they think they know about how the world works, about how the economy works, about how they think finances work, how they think government works. There's just so many things that they think they know. And instead of trying to teach them something different, all we do is we just use what Bruce Lee called as empty the cup. He says, if you want me to teach you something, you can't come to me with a full teacup. There's no room for me to put anything in. So let's start off with first thing. You need to pour this out and let's open it up so I can give you something else that you'd want. The next step that I take them through is called unlock. And that's the one you really touch on. So Henry, you found your gift. You said, hey, there are all these different things I can do, but my gift is words. My gift is crafting ideas and expressing them to other people. And you found out that there's a whole entire world looking for your gift. So everybody has that little thing in them that they need to unlock. And a lot of times it's been pushed deep, deep inside because, again, back on that unlearn portion, we've been taught how we're supposed to go through life, like the type of job we're supposed to have, the way we're supposed to move through life, what life is supposed to look like, the 2 cars, 2.5 kids, exactly what you're supposed to do, this whole box. And we have to understand we got to get rid of that box. And when we've learned to unlock that, then we feel free. However, it doesn't matter how free you feel. You're not going to do anything with that information if you don't get to the last step, which is to unleash. And unleash requires this crazy thing that people don't realize they need, which is, again, that's something they learned when they were young. You need permission to actually be yourself because somebody actually told you to not be you. So it's helpful to have somebody in your corner that gives you permission to have the confidence to actually be yourself.
Yeah, I mean, this fits so well. So I have this framework that I've been using for the 4 cornerstones of liberty. Because, when I was coming up, when I was younger, I thought, I just need to make money and then I'll be free as I ever want to be. But I figured out there are actually 4 different things you need. And I have a little acronym, SWAN. So you need security, wealth, awareness, and a network. And what you're talking about is awareness. You have to understand the way the world really works, not the pre-prescribed path that was laid out that you've been taught in school that, society kind of pushes on you. So all this unlock or unlearn, unlock, unleash. I mean, it falls perfectly in that awareness bucket of actually understanding how the real world works so you can maximize your potential. So does that resonate with you?
Oh, goodness, definitely. But when we think about this, that if you really want true freedom, then freedom comes with this. Freedom comes from awareness, right? You have to know. You're not free if you don't know. And awareness comes from choice. And if you don't understand that there's more than one way, you don't have any choice. So choice leads to awareness. Awareness leads to freedom. So it's perfectly aligned to what you're talking about.
So how do you tap it? Like people have this, it's decades really of things they have to unlearn and unlock, right? So how do you actually, is there a process you work with for people to get through this? Because I imagine there's some resistance in the early phases of working with the client.
The term some resistance is minuscule. No, there's maximum resistance. It's going against everything that they've ever learned. And what happens is the real problem is not about where we are. The real problem is nobody wants to let go of what's in their hand. One of the things I've used an example with people before is this. As a little kid, if you've ever been around a little kid and they grab something that you don't want them to have, right? They hold it so tight. And I'm talking about a little itty bitty kid, but it's so hard to get that thing out of their hand, right? Because they believe that this thing now is part of them and they think they own it and they think that there's something about it that's valuable to them. And over the course of somebody's life, what they do is they're grabbing on all these things. They grab on their education. They grab on this experience. They grab on the people around them. They grab on their network. They grab on what their parents told them. They grab all these things and they're just holding on to them. And They don't want to let any of this go because they think if they let it go, and we're going back to that kid. The reason why the kid doesn't want to let it go is because they'll be empty-handed again.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be empty-handed. So the first thing we have to do is share with this person, don't be afraid of being empty-handed, because we put these things in front of them. So I put things in front of them and say, hey, what I'm going to do is I'm going to trade with you. Nobody has a problem with trading. Think about this. Throughout the whole entire world, then people have spoken different languages, and no matter where you go in the world, it's very easy. Everybody understands trade. I show you something. You show me something. We agree or we don't agree to trade these things. And that's how the whole entire world works is trade of value. It doesn't work on, here, give me this thing, and then trust me that I'm going to give you something. So it always begins with, I have to show them that there's something of value that's here, and it has to be of more value than what they have in their hands. So they'll let this go and immediately grab onto this. So that biggest part about unlearning, and the biggest part of people overcoming what forces them to not want to unlearn, is you have to show them value in what's going to get, what they're going to get. It's similar to copywriting. It's similar to what you've always known, is that this person is holding on to an ideal. They're holding on to a thought or a belief, and they will not get rid of the belief. They will trade the belief.
Yeah. The problem a lot of times is proving that what you have is more valuable than what they have. So for example, you were talking about like these highly educated people. Mm-hmm. And, you know, I think we probably both agree that education, learning things, acquiring knowledge is extremely important. But mm-hmm. what they're valuing is not the knowledge that they've acquired. It's the credential that they have. It's a little slip of paper. So mm-hmm. how do you get them to realize that, dude, it's not the paper. It's the actual experience and knowledge that you have that's the actual value. Like, how do you, like, what is that unlocking process?
There you go. The way that you disconnect that credential from the person actually pushing into who they are, it actually begins with this. That person is very logic based. Okay. Whenever somebody is there, then they're like, you know, their logic is holding that credential is what was supposed to open up these doors. So what you do is you don't tell them anything. You ask them questions. Mm-hmm. You allow their own brain to open up. You slowly open up their brain to what's in front of them. And you say, okay, so let's just imagine that your degree was a key, right? Mm-hmm. Does a key open every door?
Not that I found.
There you go. So we already made progress. It doesn't open every door. So let's say that it does open certain doors. What are the characteristics of a certain type of key opening a certain kind of door? There are car doors. There are doors to a house. There are doors to a lock. There are all these different types of doors. And now ask the question, what is the door you want to go through?
Yeah, that's good.
And when you start there, then you start to get this person to express to you exactly what they want with that key. And then you may say, okay, so let's just imagine that that's what you want. Now I'm going to ask you a question. Does the key that you have currently open that door? And they're always going to say, well, kinda. Yeah. Everybody goes to this kinda. And my question is, when was the last time you ever were able to open a door that the key kinda worked?
Yeah. When did you kinda turn a key? Right.
There you go.
I've never kind of started a car engine.
There you go. You can't kinda. So now there's a dissonance in their logic. So right now they're like, hey, wait a second. It's starting to challenge them. And sometimes you have to stop at that point. You have to wait, and you have to wait for that person to get there. You can't just keep pushing, because the same thing happens. Like if you turn the key and it doesn't turn, it's going to break. So you say, hey, you know, let's figure out, should we turn this key or not? So you're slowly taking them through that process of understanding what's going to happen. And once they start to understand that there may be something that they don't know, this person is inquisitive. A person who keeps going back to school and a person who keeps taking courses, they're inquisitive. So now you pique their interest that, wait, there may be something that I don't know. And they'll start looking to ask you for, what is this thing that I don't know? And that's when the dialogue can actually begin. It can't begin by just throwing information at them.
No, it's interesting, because when somebody says it kind of opened a door, it's like you said, a key either opens a door or it doesn't. What they mean by kind of, I would guess, is, yeah, it opened the door. I just wasn't where I wanted to be when it opened, right? Like it got through some kind of door. Mm-hmm. And so they thought, you know, they're looking around like, well, I expected this because it opened a door, right? It got you an interview, or it got you whatever, a meeting. But if you didn't get the job or you didn't get the salary you wanted, you're not in the right room. So you needed a different key, right?
Oh, I love that portion too, because no matter where we go, then I choose the analogy that works best for them. And if we're talking about cars, then I say, hey, great. So yes, because if somebody even goes to, yeah, because I have this job and I'm the senior manager of something, something, I want to be a director, or I'm the director and I want to be a vice president. So I tell them, okay, so take that key out and then go to the next car that you want. So let's move up in the car and take the same key and try to put it in and turn it. Is it going to work? Well, no. You see this? What got you here won't get you there. There are different keys at every different level. And we have to realize this, that a degree in itself is only the key to the specific first thing that you're going to get. And that's the reason why, I also used to do a lot of mentorship with kids in college. And when I did that, then what would happen is they would actually be fooled into thinking that school was the path for them to ascend through their career. And even the career trainer said, the career center taught me this. They taught me to get, so I dealt with people from USC Career Center. They're like, oh, well, but they taught me this is the way to get a job. And I got my first job and I was like, yeah, because everybody knew that you weren't going to do well in the interview. So they overlooked it and they hired you anyway. You didn't get the job because you did well. You got the job in spite of you doing horribly. And if you keep on doing that, you can't get to the next level or the next level or the next level. So they get stuck on success. Now, I actually share a lot of times, the more success someone has, it's the biggest anchor or hindrance to them going to the next level, because they believe what got me here will get me to the next level, and it doesn't. I love analogies, kind of like you. We talked about different analogies when we first met. And can I give a great analogy for that one as well?
Yeah, absolutely, man.
All right. So the analogy for that one is this. If I want to go to Europe, then here's what I have to do. I can walk, but I can only walk to the end of the USA. I cannot physically get to Europe by walking. So what got me all the way to the end of the shoreline can't get me where I want to go. So I was really successful getting there, but I got to find some other mode of transportation to get to the other part, right? And when I use that, then all of a sudden the brain starts to say, wait, yeah, eventually, no matter what I'm doing, I have to stop and have to look at something different to get me to that next level.
Yeah, so that's the going back to your baby holding thing, that you have to replace that with another tool. Like the walking doesn't work anymore. And I mean, some people, like, you're West Coast, I'm East Coast, so you got a whole lot further to walk before you have to find that next tool.
Exactly.
So everybody's got their different situation. So how do you help people find the right tool? Like identify the tool that they need next to get to that next level?
Well, that's the crazy part about it, is because no matter who you are, there are only 6 tools that anybody can ever use. They're only 6 tools. They're actually the question that we learned when we were kids, right? You know what? The what, why, who, when, where, and how. Yeah. Now, it sounds too simple, but one of the biggest problems that people have is they use them in the wrong order. I'll use, you want to use jobs, or do you want to use a freelancer trying to get a job? Because it doesn't matter. They both go this exact same process, and I can show how they use them out of order in what they think they're trying to do.
I mean, I'd rather go with the freelancer getting the client, just because there's more people trying to get out of that corporate world than
so,
listen to this.
All right. Now, here's the first thing a person tries to do. The first thing they try to do is get a client. They do the how there. How am I going to get a client? How am I going to get a client? How am I going to get a client? Their first question in their brain is, how am I going to get a client? How am I going to get in front of them? Oh, I need to figure out an ad, or I need to figure out a proposal. I need to figure out, they're always trying to figure out something. And that's the actual last step. So they jump directly to the how, and then they unsuccessfully do the how. And then they do this horrible thing called poor practice. Practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. If you learn how to do something poorly, then the more times you do it, the worse you get at it. And that's one of those problems that people run into, because if we go back to the what, in other words, the first question is about what capabilities do you have? What experience, training, skills do you have that you can bring to the table? And once you understand that, we talk about that unlock portion. That's what the whole unlock is you have to know what is your superpower. And once you understand what your superpower is, you know what to do with your superpower. And then you go to why. Why do I have this superpower, and why would anybody else care that I have this superpower? And you're defining out why anyone would look for that superpower. And if you don't know who the right person is that needs that superpower, you're shooting in the dark.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. So people shoot out a proposal. Oh, I can help everybody. No, you can't help everybody. There's nobody on earth who can help everybody. So if you haven't determined that exact who that needs what you have and they have a definite need why, it's not going to work out. Right. The other two steps, the when and the where, are really where people get super confused because very few people ever jump into those questions. Some people do. They go into the what, they go into the why, but they're constantly missing this crazy thing called when and where. And it doesn't work the way most people think. The when is about them not trusting themselves. People don't trust themselves. And I'm not talking about the person who's sending a proposal. It's the person who's looking at you to take a proposal from you. When they go to look for you, what are they going to see? Do they see that you have authority? Do they see that you have something that shows that you're going to be capable of doing a job that they want you to do? If you are incognito, if you are invisible, if you don't have something that gives them some proof so they can trust themselves, not trust you, but they can trust themselves to make this decision and even be able to point, if they make a bad decision, they want to be able to point and say, well, when I looked here, this is what I saw. So you would have done the same thing. People want to take that weight off their shoulders. And if you don't give them that ability to take the weight off their shoulders, they're not going to trust you. And that last one that I was sharing in this where is another thing that people don't realize. Where you are is not about where you are in space. It's where you are in relation to that person's expectations. Really key on that. Where you are in regards to their expectations. So when we encounter somebody, they have an expectation of us based upon what they need, right? Mm-hmm. And you've heard this term, or you're overqualified for this, or you're underqualified for this. That's because you haven't positioned yourself in the right where. You haven't understood what they need, and you haven't understood how to position it properly. Many people go in and they say, oh, I'm going to tell them everything I can do. And they say, oh, you're overqualified. You overwhelm them. And they're like, oh, but I don't need all that. Or other people say, well, I'm just going to tell them this one thing. And they don't understand it. Most people, as soon as you begin talking to them, their brain starts to open up a little bit. So you have to be able, what I call it is the before or the after. The where you are has to have at least the thing they want and one step beyond it when you're talking to them. So they know that you have a competence, not in just this thing, but you have a competence just beyond what they're looking for, and they'll feel comfortable with you because you'll see you as an authority. And
so you're not trying to overstep their expectation by you're trying to overstep it by a little bit, not too much, right?
There you go.
You want to be just above what they expected. So you're knocking out the competition for that, who are either way over or way under, or
there you go.
The people that are just at it aren't quite where you are. So you're
That's
giving them
exactly it.
And that does take the weight off their shoulders and the responsibility, right? Because everybody's got a boss in some way. So you got to report back. And, fear is a huge driver in business. People fear of making the wrong move, of losing your business, of losing your salary. So you have to give people an excuse to relieve the fears. Like, well, I have this that I can fall back on, that I'm not going to get blamed for this. It's not going to come back and hurt me.
There you go. And so they're looking for all of those questions answered. And once you've answered all those questions, the how is not what people think as well. How is not how you're going to find them. It's how are they going to find you. Right. If you put all of these things in place, then all you have to do is show up in one of the places that they're already looking, and they will choose you. Think about it, Henry. You didn't have to go chasing work. People came knocking at your door and you actually had to turn away work. In my career, then people have always come to recruit me. I didn't have to go looking for jobs. I don't have to go looking for jobs because I put myself right where people are looking for somebody just like me. Yeah. So it's not about how I'm going to get the job. It's how are they going to find me? And I just instantly just plug myself in that place. And the last bit about that one that'll really apply to you is that's why you get paid so much. And that's why I get paid so much. Because when you show up in this place and they're looking for you, if they're chasing you, you're valued. If you're chasing them, then you're devaluing yourself.
One of the interesting things about my career was I've never asked for a raise in my life. So I've gone and I've done the best work I could do. And, I haven't chased clients since 2010. I did the best work I could do. And then people talked about it. And then I got a better offer. So I move over there, and then somebody would come to me and I get a better offer, and then I get a higher royalty rate, and I had people competing over me, and I never really had to do the work, which is it's somewhat of a disadvantage when people come to me and ask like, oh, how do I get to that level where you're making, you have this 5-figure retainer and you're getting 10 points on royalties, and I'm like, I don't know. I just did good work and they offered it to me. But that's
Well,
why.
but all I did was what you did. I systematized it. So that's literally all it is you did it naturally. And I was going through it and I was trying to figure out how was it happening because I'm always about processes and trying to figure out how do you make something duplicatable. And that's what I did was I just figured out how you did what you did. And I figured out how I was doing the exact same thing because no, literally one time in my life I ever asked for a raise. Only one time. And the rest of the times, and I never had to ask for a raise either. And they kept throwing, I'm talking about some crazy, I was getting 50% raises at companies. And people say that's not possible.
That doesn't happen, right?
It 100% does when the company that you're with understands your value and they know that anybody can come up and swoop you just like they came and swooped you.
It's that fear of business, right?
There you
it's
go.
the fear. I can't lose this person. I got to do something to keep them. So yeah, you got to create that kind of dread in your clients and your employers sometimes.
You do, and there's nothing wrong with it because that's what they're reverse doing with you. A lot of times, that's what a client is trying to do. They're trying to make you feel like you're lucky to have them as a client, as opposed to them being lucky to have you. With some of my different clients that I've coached through, then I always start off in that point as well. And part of the unlearn process, then I always focus on understanding your value and understanding your value in the world. There's only one of you. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you have an identical twin. You all were born seconds apart or minutes apart. The answer is there's nobody on earth exactly like you. So there's only one of you out of 7.5 billion, right?
Right.
How many jobs are there? Millions. How many opportunities to go freelance at different companies? There are a million. So
Infinite.
you have so many opportunities for yourself. However, they only have a few opportunities to get you. So which one of these things is the prize?
Yeah. You're the prize. You're the scarce resource.
You are the scarce resource. And if you go into every opportunity understanding that, then it takes a lot of weight off your shoulders. And that lack of confidence comes because they don't understand their value. They don't understand what they bring to the table. They don't understand just how powerful they are in the negotiations. But once they're unleashed, whoo, beasts.
The difference would be most people are looking at how they're similar to everyone else as opposed to what they can uniquely offer, right? Like anybody can write words on a paper, like, right? What do I have special to offer? It's like, well, I think differently than 7.5 billion other people, right? I've done different things. So yeah, I think people should start realizing how they're unique as opposed to realizing how they're the same.
There you go. So now I'm going to reverse and ask you a question.
Let's do it.
Think about it. When you were coming up, then you had doubts and you had reservations, you had these fears. One of the things that helped you overcome it was what? What was one thing that helped you overcome one of your first doubts?
Success.
There you go. And watch, was it a giant success?
No, it was literally the first time it was like somebody wrote me a check for writing words on paper. I was like, that was a major turning point, like, right? Like I had this theory of like, I've heard of other people doing this. I know it's possible, but like, am I good enough? And then somebody writes you that check, hands it to you and says, bring me the copy later. I'm like, oh, it's real.
That's exactly it. So I've actually reached out to a whole lot of celebrities and I asked them this question. I said, hey, can you tell me what makes you unignorable? And I have like a whole bunch of recordings and I'll release them all later for what different people said. But one particular celebrity, that was exactly his words. He's an extremely famous comedian. And he said, hey, well, what happened was somebody said I could tell jokes. And then I went and I told a joke and I got $500. And from that, then all of a sudden I was like, wait a second, maybe I'll be able to do this thing. And it was that little bitty win that took everything that made this person a 8-figure celebrity. Yeah. Think about it. 8 figures started off as a push to do something for $500. I think back on my career and we look at your career and they're all the same. You have to get some little bitty win. And what people are doing is they're trying to hit a home run every single time. And that's the wrong mentality. So we keep on going back. And I told you, unlearn is the biggest part of this whole entire process. They think that when they go up to bat, they're objective because it's baseball season and my Dodgers, they're killing the game. And we talk about that every time somebody gets up there, everybody wants to see a home run. But does anybody actually realize what your batting average has to be in order to get into the Hall of Fame? Think about it. What do you need to get into the Hall of Fame?
I actually don't know.
Do you know that you can get in the Hall of Fame batting 280? In other words, less than a third of the times, just a little bit over 1 out of 4 times you're at bat, then you make contact and you're getting that, you're getting a run. Think about how crazy that is. 1 out of 4 times you're doing something and you're in the Hall of Fame. But think about this in every one of our lives. In all of our lives, we keep on trying to look at the home runs. We keep on trying to look at the successes. We don't look at that there are a lot of little bitty successes that we can find in what we do. So what I try to do is I try to share with people how to find the little bitty success in all the different things you do. The fact that you could unlearn one thing, great. The fact that you could unlock one thing that you didn't know about yourself or something you had pushed in, great. The fact that you actually applied for something or did something that you weren't going to do before is a win. Some little bitty wins that I got, people. Can I share some of those so people can see just how small a little bitty win could be?
I'd love it, man. Do it.
A little bitty win could be you applying or making a proposal for your dream company. Think about this. Even when you think you're not ready, sending that proposal to your dream company, because that's when your biggest fears is, oh, I'm not ready to do this. The answer is you're ready to do it. It doesn't matter whether they choose you or not. One of the things that happens with that little win, and when I get people to take those little wins, here's what happens. I'm able to talk to them and say, hey, guess what? Write this down, or I'd say either write it down or video yourself. Talk about how you felt before you did that. Talk about how you felt right after you did that. And there's nobody who feels worse. And then talk about what was the difference between how you felt and how you feel right now. And it was nothing more than doing it. Yeah. And think about how many times, if you just do this thing, you're going to feel better. It wasn't about you getting that proposal accepted or getting that job with that premier agency that you were trying to get. It's about actually taking that right step in that direction. And one of the things that happens a lot of times with that thing that I get from people is I hold on to it. And then whatever they're feeling down or they're feeling frustrated, I send it to them and said, hey, remember, little wins, little wins, little wins. And then after we reach their pinnacle or the thing that they were really trying to get, I send it back to them and I send a little bitty emoji of the gift. And I said, remember when you were feeling this sort of way about this first step and now you achieved your goal? And they look back at how far they've come. And that's really it. They don't get to see how far they come because very few people track their progress. They don't track their little wins. I tell people with a little win, go take yourself out to get a taco, go get a burger, get a shake. I don't care whatever your thing is, reward yourself for the little wins and your body will tell you, keep getting little wins until we can get some bigger ones.
Yeah, it's interesting how people, they only keep score in one area, right? So it's
home runs.
Yeah. I think about, so I think I was 25 the first time I earned $100,000 in a year, which was mind blowing. You know, I'm an inner city kid growing up. I'd never seen anybody really make good money, especially working for themselves. And then the next year I did that working in the health niche with copywriting, which was cool. I like health. I like talking about, supplements and how the body works. But then I saw all the money's being made in the financial niche. So I tried to move over there. And the year after I made $100,000, I made $27,000 or right around 30.
Right.
And that, in one context, that's extremely painful, right? You're like, oh, I was up here and now I'm down there. But at the end of the year, I was able to look at it and go, all right, I'm down here, but I have 2 skills now instead of 1, right? So it's the victory wasn't the financial gain at the time. It was, all right, now I'm actually better prepared. And then, from there, my salary just kept going up and up. And, when I crossed $200,000, it's like, yeah, all right, that one down year was worth the loss, so to say, of the income because of the victories gained. So you have to look for where you're winning, not where you're losing, so to say.
Oh my goodness. We live parallel lives, man. It was not just the goatees and the bald heads. We're living parallel lives because right around that 25, 26-year-old me, I did something similar. I was willing to take a chance on me and I took a lower salary to learn something. And I was like, I think if I learn this thing, then it'll pay off in the end. And yeah, that's what took me well above that $500,000+ mark too. Because when you learn those things, then you're able to apply them. But what people are, they're afraid. They think they're stepping backwards. They don't understand that you're not stepping backwards. You're just taking a side step. Whenever you're doing this different thing, you're taking a side step. You're not stepping backwards because like you called it, they're only looking at one metric. That one metric is home runs. That one metric is income. They're not looking at the long game. They're not looking at how to get into the Hall of Fame. And getting into the Hall of Fame is about persistence and consistency.
Absolutely. Do you want to talk about some of the tools? I don't know if you want to talk about this because it's kind of your proprietary thing, but
I'll definitely talk about it. You pick which one of the tools would be the best to your listeners, and I'll go deep dive into that thing.
I think so. You talked about the career balance sheet when we were talking one time, and I really, that makes so much sense for, the corporate executive, but I think it makes even more sense for a freelancer that doesn't have
my goodness.
resume, things that matter quite as much. So can you kind of talk about the framework that you've come up with there for the balance sheet?
Man, I'd be happy to talk about that one. So that's actually what's in front of me. I thought you would be interested in that one. So really what it boils down to is think about how companies value themselves, or when an investor is looking to invest in a company, they don't look at how much the company is making. Contrary to popular belief, then that's not where the value comes from. Because if you're blowing through $2 million, if you're earning $2 million, right? But it costs you $5 million to earn $2 million, how much are you going to pay for that company?
I mean, it depends if it's a social media company, because then they'll pay it through.
Well, that's anomalous, and we'll get to that in a different time.
In the real world, it's negative. You'd have to pay me $3 million to take it.
There you go, because it doesn't have value. It doesn't have worth. And we really keep talking about those terms, value and worth. What they look at something that most people overlook in their own lives, but a company never overlooks. The reason why you understand what a company is worth is because they have a balance sheet. And balance sheet, we're not going to get all technical with it. We're not going to talk accounting. I don't want everybody to tune off and say, oh my goodness, they're going to talk about something nerdy and boring. It's not even about that. All it's about is pluses and minuses. Certain things help you and are contributing to what you do. Other things are minuses and they're holding you back. So what my objective is to make sure that we put the odds in your favor, and we put more thing on the plus side than on the negative side. And we just break down some of those different things. And I'll actually start off on the liabilities. And with the liabilities, in other words, the negatives, many of these people think they are their strengths. And that's what really just destroys their way of how they see the world. So that's the first part of unlearning. So we look at experience. And this is that crazy, crazy, crazy thing. People believe that the number of years of experience that you have, that's what determines what you get paid. Nothing further from the truth. And you know that because, again, how you came through the ranks and how I went through the ranks is experience is not it. I actually talked a little bit about it before when I talked about practice. Experience is nothing more than practice. And I share with people, if you practiced it incorrectly, then it didn't work out. So another analogy I give to that one, I said, okay, so if I go to propose for a freelancing job and you go to propose for a freelancing job, then one person says, but I have 10 years of experience. I said, I can blow them out of the water really fast with just a couple statements. The first statement is, absolutely, you walk in and you tell people, well, there may be people who have more experience than me, but let's just look at what experience is. If I did something wrong for 10 years, then that's 10 years of doing something wrong. If I did something right for 1 week, then which one of these people has more value?
It's the one that did it right.
For just 1 week.
Net positive. Even if you're slightly net positive, the other person's massively net negative.
So don't lean on experience. So people are, I don't have enough experience. I don't have enough. So on that balance sheet, don't look towards experience. You focus in on your capabilities and you focus in your achievements, the things that you have done successfully that you can prove. If you can prove that you've done something successfully one time, you have more value than somebody who says they have X amount of experience in doing something. If you prove that you can do something 2 times the same thing, then you have tremendous amount of value because it wasn't a fluke.
Right.
The next thing we go to is we talk about how just people have a lack of ability to talk about themselves. And I brought this up in our conversation before back in Knoxville. And I shared there are 3 magical words that'll help you whenever you're talking about yourself, so you don't feel icky and you don't feel like, but I don't want to try to sell myself. I tell people, don't sell yourself. You shouldn't have to sell yourself. However, you should be able to articulate your value, and that's called messaging versus just words. So many times people say, well, if I just had the right words, I said, you don't want words, because one word is a liability. The wrong word can destroy your whole entire career, right? Mm-hmm. But the right messaging can only propel you forward. And though that messaging is based on who you are, once we unlock who you are, then we find these 3 magical words. Everybody get a pen because you're going to write this thing down and it's going to totally change your life. Got it? Here we go. So those three magical words are I'm known for. And it sounds silly that those are magical words, but I'm about to share with you why those are magical words. When you use I'm known for, the first thing that happens with you is now you're not talking about you. It's a third person. You're telling what people say about you, what people think about you, what people have had experiences about you. So it's not about you bragging, it's just telling the truth. The other thing that happens is when you say that to someone, then they don't hear you bragging. They don't hear you being braggadocious at all. They hear you just relaying messages about what is the truth about you from a third party. And it totally changes the conversation. So everybody, well, I did this, and I did this, versus I'm known for taking people who are struggling with their career to getting $300,000 jobs. Is that bragging about me?
No, man.
No, it's just making a statement, right?
It's amazing when you talked about this and I saw light bulbs popping on over everybody's head in the room because nobody likes to brag about themselves except for me. I'm really good at it, but no, but even me, it's like there's a certain point where you're like, I can't say this in polite company, right? It's how much you want to talk about. Oh, I make X amount of money. It's sometimes you have to do it because you have to establish it, but at the same time, you're not going to go out to dinner and sit down and be like, so how much money did you make? It's not polite conversation.
Exactly. It doesn't work that way. It's just, it doesn't make any sense. And people block it out when you talk in that way. They also block out when you say, I. And when it's a super turn off.
Yeah. It's the same thing. If I go, oh, I'm one of the best copywriters in the world. It's like, no, but if you go, oh, I'm known for taking dead products and bringing them back to life for my clients. It's like, oh, okay. It's an entirely different feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's super. That's like, yeah, I'm going to probably clip this and put it out because that's such a great point.
It's totally the truth. Now, the next thing that happens is people get horrible recommendations and testimonials. They get horrible ones because they say, hey, can you give me a testimonial? And they shut up and they just let somebody tell about them. Yeah. And that person says, oh, they were so nice. And they just made me feel so good. And they give all these garbage things that don't really help move the needle. So what I share with people is that people just need a prompt. All you have to do is give somebody a prompt about what would be helpful for them to talk about and for you to have an endorsement related to. So you share, let's say, for instance, when we talk about financial products, you talk about, okay, so can you talk about what your ad spend was before and what your ad spend is now? Can you talk about how we were able to return your return on ad spend? Can you talk about how the list grew? Can you talk about how, so you give them a prompt about what to talk about and they enjoy it as well because they feel less icky about talking as well because they feel uncomfortable talking about you without a context. But if you ask somebody, hey, can you talk about me related to this? They're like, oh, that's easy. So it makes it easier for the person and it gives you something tangible that you can use later on versus just these randoms. Oh, he's nice. Okay, great. But I don't want to hire nice people. I want effective people and I want them effective in certain things. So I share with people how to get the right testimonials, the right endorsements in the right way. And you don't want them all to sound the same. So you spread your competencies, you spread your goodness around to multiple people. So you don't tell everybody, you don't have this blanket statement that says, talk to people about how I did this. The answer is no. Everybody got a different experience from you, and you want them to talk about that experience that was really important to them, but it still aligns to what you want people to hear.
That's a great point, is when you're asking for testimonials, it really should be about their experience of you, right? Because people don't care about, if you're sitting there asking them to just say nice things about you, it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, that's not what the next person's looking for. If you're trying to pitch yourself to somebody, they're not looking to hear how great you are. They're looking to hear what it's in it for them. And that's that context, that context is really important to get across. And just having somebody say, like, can you say nice things about me? It's not going to work. It's not going to get them to relate that experience because they haven't thought of the question that way.
It won't move the needle. And now we get to those two areas that I was talking about that really get sticky. We talk about that when and that where. And then the wins category is people, when it comes to your presence, and I'm not just talking about online presence. I'm not talking about online presence. I'm not talking about social media, but of course those things can count. But when I'm talking about your presence, meaning when people are trying to find out who you are, what is going to present itself to them. And that can be like when I was in the aerospace world, we could not because we deal with a lot of military contracts and other things, then I could not put a lot out social media wise. I could not put a lot out things related to me because the type of contracts and the different types of things we did. So people would say, well, how do you get the word out about you if you're not able to just randomly spread it? And the way that works is that's where networking really comes in. And you're building this network of people who are passing the word verbally about you. It's just like how you got a lot of your jobs and how I got a lot of my jobs is when people have a need or when people are talking about you, you've defined the narrative about you. So when people say, hey, I'm looking for somebody to bring back this dead product, when they have that thought in their head, they think of Henry. When they say, hey, my company is struggling, or we need to grow this product, or we're having problems with people, we're having this thing, then they would think, well, that's Rob Tillman. So you have to have when they have this specific need or when this thing happens, that's what they get from you. It has to be defined exactly in that way. And now we come to the one I said that no one really pays any attention to, which is that where. And where, remember, it's not where you are, it's where are you in regards to their expectations. It's what level you are. Are you too high, too low, or just right? And that really comes with people getting away from something that we've all been taught is important, which is job titles. Because people get so caught up on job titles. They're like, oh, well, in order to become a president of the company, first had to be a vice president. In order to be a vice president, first had to be a director. For it to be, so they're looking at how do these levels work, and they think you have to go through them successively. And the answer is no, you really don't have to, because those titles really don't mean what we think they mean. You can be the CEO and founder of a company that makes $0. Or you can be the janitor at a company and you can make $60,000. Which one of these people is the person more valuable?
I mean, just monetarily, obviously the janitor. Somebody actually provided value to the world that was proven. It
was proven. You see that? It was proven that they provided value. So that's the whole thing about when I get into that where do they see you? And you don't say it within titles. And that's where a lot of people go wrong. They'll say, well, in the creative space, and I've worked with different artists and other things like that. And every single person wants to be creative director. Creative director. I'm the creative director. Everybody names themselves. People will even start their own, their agency, and they'll call themselves creative director because they believe that title is what is necessary in order to move the needle. And I share with them, forget about the title. What you need to be able to really correlate is where you are authority-wise. What is your level of authority? And your level of authority should be equal to and just greater than the person that is looking towards you to hire you. Because if it's too high, they are intimidated by you. They're like, oh, this is not going to work. You're going to take my job. Oh, you're going to make me look stupid. You see, you instill fear in them when your level isn't correct. And if your level is too low, you're easily dismissed or, oh, you can't do this job I want you to do. So you have to pick exactly where you're going to be in association to their level of expectation. And there's just some simple questions you can ask that'll get you to understand where they expect you to be. And you just ask questions like, what are the responsibilities that you're looking for someone to have? And then all you do is you align with those responsibilities, not with that job title, but where they think this person is supposed to be. But remember, you're where plus a little bit.
It was funny. So I was only employed so I got one corporate job as a flight attendant right out of college. And then I was freelance for the next 10 years or so. And then I took one job with it's a direct response company, but they gave me, I went and interviewed with them. We did 2 interviews. We did all these super tests and whatever. They had a real thorough process. And then it got to the salary negotiations, and, I'm coming on as copywriter, and they were going to pay me so much. They insisted on giving me the title creative director because in their own mind, they couldn't justify just hiring a copywriter, but they needed what I was going to do for them. So they had to come up with a title for me, which I thought was just funny that they gave me a bigger title than I was. I didn't care about the title, right? I'm here to make money. I'm here to help you make money and get paid for it. So that titles are totally, it's a joke, right?
It totally is. But that's what people hold on to. So I was going down this list, and all these liabilities, the experiences, this just words, the random endorsements, just not being in the right frame of when and not being in the conversation, job titles, all of these things These are what people have historically held on to as the things that they held as value. And what I do is I just totally flip them all over onto the other asset side and show them what things really matter to a company, what moves the needle for a company, and what makes a company say, you are worth this to me, and we need to have you with us right now. And that last one is just how. And again, that is what we talked about before. It's just so simple. Once you have all of these assets, when you place them in front of somebody, if you are walking down the street, okay, you're on your normal path going to the store. You're going to get a cup of coffee or something, right? If you're on your normal path and you see $100 on the sidewalk, are you going to pick it up?
I would imagine so.
Because it's value. Nobody had to sell you the $100. Nobody had to tell you, oh, you could do so many things with this $100. Once you figure out the path they're on and you put this thing of value in front of them, they would be a fool to not stop and investigate and try to figure out if it's real or not.
Yeah.
And if you've set all of these assets in this way, then they find out that it is a real $100 bill. Think about it. We've seen fake bills and other things so you pick it up, but you're going to stop and you're going to do this. But if we set this thing and these assets just this way, then what happens is they determine this thing is real and I want it with me.
Yeah, that's great. So is that the end of the balance sheet?
Yeah, we're at the how portion. Yeah.
That's what I thought, and once you have that, like, I love these exercises where you sit down and actually have to formally think about something, which is, systematizing and formalizing is what you're really good at, because I think the way you talked about it was like, it keeps raising your floor. When you do this exercise, you're raising your floor of what your value is. And you can't really drop below the floor. Once you have all these concrete things, you know what you're worth now, and you have a way of articulating it. I'm known for, and then you have this whole sheet that you're like, well, I wouldn't accept anything, and why would people want to pay me less?
There you go.
I love these tools that you've put together.
And that's really it. Is one of the things that I share with people is, and you talked a lot about this, is how people really have a hidden fear. It doesn't matter how successful you are. Most people have this hidden fear. And they said, I have infinite upside, but I also have infinite downside. So I could be making $120,000 as a copywriter. Everybody is aiming for that $10,000 a month. That's $120,000 a year. And it's like, okay, if I get that to that level, then I've made it. But the answer is, did you really make it? Yes, you check that box. However, what are you going to make next year? What are you going to make the year after that? And if you haven't really systematized or really determined what your value is, that at any point they can pull the rug under you and you can go back to having to start it all over again. So what I try to do is make sure that people have a solid foundation so that they don't ever fall below that level, because they've just locked in that level. I call it locking in the gains. And then as they continue growing and they continue adding to this balance sheet, then what do you do again? You've locked in that value at the next level, and you know that you're not going to go any lower. And you just continue to keep building and locking in that gain and locking in that gain. And that's the surest way to do it. You think about with investment. What is the first rule from Warren Buffett? Don't lose money.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't lose money.
That's the first rule. Don't lose. Don't lose. That's right. Don't lose your gain. What is the second rule? Remember, rule number 1. So the whole objective is to keep on locking in your gains. So many people are they're chasing this gain, they're chasing to get more successful. And they don't take a moment to really lock in where they are so that they are able to have a ground floor that's at a new level. And then you add to it and you lock that in, and you add to it and you lock it in. You just continue doing this thing. And pretty soon you are Henry and just killing the game like nobody else.
Let's talk about Rob, though, because your career path has been not like a linear thing.
Totally not linear. And that's what I actually love about knowing that this process works no matter who you are or no matter what you do. My career has been totally not linear. I have worked in things that are related to sales. I worked in quality systems. I worked in engineering systems. I worked as general manager for a company that was actually bought. I helped them buy a company. I went over to China and helped them set up companies. I worked in automotive, aerospace, building boats, building windows, like any and every kind of crazy thing. People gravitate because they understand if you have a certain type of value, just like you can write just about any kind of thing, because what you do is transferable. And that's another part of what we really have to do, is we have to understand what our transferable skills are. We have to understand what is that true value we bring to a whole lot of people, not just to one little bitty specific niche of people. So me, man, lived in China for a bit. I spent time in France, UK, all over Mexico. I used to have to cross the border to AK-47s with federales, going over to set up different companies and different things like that. So I've had crazy adventures, and none of those really compare to this adventure that I'm on now, where those things I was helping people, I'll call it, in a limited way. In those things, I was making sure that people could feed their families and that they had opportunity within these different jobs, because these companies that I was helping to grow, they allowed people to have a place to work. They allowed them to have some job security. But now I call it, change the trajectory of people's lives. I get to take a person and open their mind to different things that change how their kids see them, or how their parents see them, or how their siblings see them. And beyond that, then what starts to happen is their whole entire family starts to look at them in a different way. And their family starts to ask them questions, and they feel so much better because now they are the authority in the family. Maybe before they had an older sibling or somebody that was the one that everybody went to, but now that they're getting these successes locked in and they're growing in their career, then people start to look at them and they feel incredibly proud about what's happening in their lives. And I even had one guy that he said, "Do you know that you totally changed the trajectory of my entire family?" Because what he was taught with this process, he went on and taught his son, and his son got 50% more in what he was making to do the same type of job, 50% more. And then he taught it to his daughter as she was coming out of college. And he jokingly said, and she's going to blow it out the water because she's even smarter than the boy.
So what I love about your answer right there, for the people listening, I asked Rob about himself, and what he did is showed what he did for other people. That's how you actually build value for yourself. Is you don't talk about, oh, I've accomplished this, this, and this. You talk about, oh man, I worked with this one guy, and with a little bit of my help, he was able to do this, this, and this. And that answer made you look so much more valuable than somebody standing there bragging. It's the same as your "I'm known for" concept right there.
It totally is. And it's just naturally how that's when I went back to that unlearning. We are taught as a young age, then it's about what we do. You got a ribbon for this, or you got a medal for this, you got these different types of things. So we start to try to accumulate all these different pieces. And what we start to realize when we unlearn is none of those pieces mean anything if they can't be shared with somebody else. And when we figure out that our objective is to help someone else, or to help as many people as we can, the more people we can help, the more we're going to be unignorable. Think about this. The whole fact about being ignored is you're ignored by somebody, right? To be ignored means someone is not paying attention to you.
Right.
To be unignorable means that someone is paying attention to you. And people pay attention to someone who can help them. If you are being ignored, it's because people don't see the value in you. They don't see how you can help them. But once you're able to just really unleash the way that you're able to help a company, a person, just anybody on the street, then they start to look towards you and they never ignore you. And then as you help more and more people describe you as a helper, and they determine all these other opportunities for you to help more and more and more people. And it becomes so many people, you can't help them alone, and you have to get help to help people.
Absolutely. I mean, this is the basis of how the market works, is you become valuable by bringing value to other people. And you've done that extraordinarily well through your career. We're at just about an hour. I feel like this is just going to be part one of a conversation. We're going to have you back on at some point.
Oh man, I'd love to be back on. Like I said, we totally hit it off when we met. I said that this is the guy for me. So I love what you're doing. I love what you're doing with Practical Liberty, that every bit about it is what people need to hear. They need to hear what's going to give them freedom, what's going to give them liberty, what's going to bring something to their life so they can make the best life for them. Because that's what real liberty really is the best life for you. And nobody can tell you what's the best life for you. They can just give you the tools for you to use so that you can build that best life.
Absolutely. So where can people find you if they want to get in touch? I see your Twitter and LinkedIn there and your name.
There you go. So those are actually the best places to get me. You hit me there, and then we can just kind of take different conversations in different places. If you wanted to hit me on a level regarding what I do, then that's at unignorable.com. Exactly as you would spell it, unignorable.com.
That's awesome. We'll link to that. Man, this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate you coming on today.
Appreciate having me. I can't wait to get back. We totally have great conversations. You're the man.
All right, that's the episode for this week. And remember, go grab my Levels of Liberty tactical checklist. Again, I put this together as a simple guide to help you kind of assess how free you are in your own life and then how to climb up the different levels of liberty. So you can grab that at henrybing.co/liberty. That's henrybing.co/liberty. All right, see you back here next week.